Hello everybody, my name is Dratnos, and today we have some patch notes from the 10.1 PTR that we're going to go over. Real quick, I just want to give you a heads up about what's been going on the past week on the PTR, so that you can kind of catch up if you haven't been following it along too closely. So last week there was a little bit of raid testing. They tested the first and sixth bosses on Mythic difficulty, which the first boss, pretty easy, ended up getting kind of hotfixed midway through testing to become a little bit harder, and then they accidentally kind of broke it a little bit. But either way, we assume that boss not going to be too difficult on any difficulty, as first bosses generally aren't. But then they tested Zaskarn, which is the trap boss. That one ended up being really nasty. Nobody I know is getting past the second or third minute of that fight during the hour of raid testing. So they also added M+ affixes to the PTR. And there's some videos already on that, on like the GG WoW page, where we go over what those are. But this post now brings some big changes to them all. So let's go just point by point. Incorporeal is now immune to damage and has more consistent spawn behavior. Incorporeal is this affix where these mobs show up, they live for 20 seconds, they spam this 8-second cast at you, and if that cast goes off, I think it's minus 50% healing and damage on you when it goes off. So very bad. It's either that or it's a minus 100% haste. One of those is afflicted, one of those is incorporeal. But you're supposed to stop it from happening. Now the incorporeal ads themselves they're immune to like AoE effects, some AoE CC effects, but they were getting hit by some damage effects and dots and stuff, and dots that spread to them. So what would happen before on the PTR was you would try and CC one with something like a blind or a paralysis or something like that, and it would just get instantly broken because the mob was taking damage. So now they're actually immune to damage, and so something like a blind or a paralysis should pretty much full answer an incorporeal ad, which is going to make it a lot nicer, because otherwise, they last for 20 seconds, they do this 8-second cast, and they just keep recasting it, right? So if you just were to interrupt them, but then they kept recasting, right? If you were to blind them at 4 seconds into their cast, and then they broke out of that blind, then you've still got 16 seconds of them spam casting at you to deal with. If you're trying to milk that cast and kick it towards the end, that's a recipe for disaster as well. It is an interruptible cast as well, or you can hit it with single target stuns, Storm Bolt, those sorts of things, Fell Eruption, or you can use, I do think the most powerful effects are the blinds, the hibernates now. They are affected by any CC, including stuff like Turn Evil, Hibernate, anything that even has like a specific restrictions on which tags it can affect. So maybe this is going to be nicer. They've also smoothed out the rate at which they spawn, sometimes too many at once, which I think that was a big problem that people had with it as well. I've seen clips where there were like 4 of them at once, and you've got 4 mobs that last 20 seconds each that are spamming an 8-second cast at you that are immune to AoE stops on those. Really, really obnoxious. So this seems like a step in a good direction. Depending on how much they've smoothed out the spawn rate, then that would be good. They've also are discussing a change that would cause them to fade away when combat with non-incorporeal beings has ended. This is mandatory. If this doesn't come through, this affix is going to feel awful. Think about like Spiteful Shades in Mist of Tyrna Scythe, when you would have a pack end and then, oh no, a Spiteful spawns, and it lasts for 5 seconds and you're stuck in combat and you can't go forward. Well, incorporeals last for 20 seconds. So if you finish off a pack, but then an incorporeal spawned in the last few seconds, and now you can't mount up, drop combat, drink, until 17, 18 seconds later, that is going to be horrific. So it seems like a good thing for them to target here. Afflicted affix now has less health and more consistent spawn behavior. Now, Afflicted is an affix where friendly spirits will spawn. They need to get healing dunked into them, or they can be dispelled with a disease, poison, or curse dispel. And if any of those happen to it, or if it gets topped, it will disappear. But if they don't for 10 seconds, if they get their cast off, then I think this one is the minus 100% haste one, and the other one is the minus 50% damage and healing one, but I'm not 100% sure which is which. But either way, yeah, very bad if that goes off. This one seems to be a lot less of an aggressive spawn rate than the incorporeal. a lot easier, a lot more realistic to deal with. And the health values I thought were already reasonable, but they're nerfing the health on them further, especially at the higher key levels, which seems good. And these sorts of affixes that feel good and reasonable at 15s often do feel unreasonable at those higher key levels. And yeah, so they want to make sure that healing through it is a practical option. Especially if you're in a group that doesn't have a good access to a bunch of dispels, or where enemies have threatening dispellable abilities. And I think that the end place for this should hopefully be somewhere where, like, yeah, realistically, if you're pushing on Afflicted week, you know, you probably want somebody, at least an off-heal, like a non-healer person with a dispel for them, but it shouldn't feel like impossible to game without one, and it should feel like healing through these is a reasonable way to do it. So, I already thought it was doing reasonably well by that metric, but I'm glad to see them make further changes here. But this wasn't one of the affixes I was super concerned with. Entangling. While in combat, entangling vines snare players. So this is one where sort of you're in combat, vines spawn below you, they slow you by 50%, and you got to run out of them. And if you don't, within 8 seconds, you get stunned for 3 seconds. And you have to get 10 yards away from the point that you're being snared to. This one already seemed very, very reasonable to me. It's annoying if you're a caster. It's going to be sort of replacing Volcanic in the spot where, like, if you're a caster that likes to sit and plant, you're going to be more annoyed by this than if you're a BM hunter or melee or whatever. But it already seemed pretty reasonable, and they are keeping an eye on it, but they're not actually planning any changes, and they are looking to improve visual clarity and audio cues for it, which I think was the main point of feedback that they got from me and others about this affix, was that it's pretty easy to miss a green, dark brown root that's spawning on you, especially because a lot of dungeons are green and dark brown on the ground. And so you do get a debuff, but it doesn't do damage to you, and it does just kind of slow you. So if you're in the middle of, like, a big pull, it would be pretty easy to miss this, and so it was going to be I think they're hopefully going to land somewhere where most top-end players are probably still going to use a weak aura for this, but hopefully you don't feel too penalized if you don't want to, whereas I think you probably would have had it, if it makes it to live the way that it was this weekend's testing, where it was just, it was pretty easy to miss this, like maybe 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20 spawns, you would kind of not notice, or not notice instantly, and that would be enough of a downside to kind of make the weak aura, not mandatory, but you know, really good. So hopefully they move the weak aura instead to, like, okay, these M+ers that are using a gunshot weak aura for every frontal, yeah, they're still going to want a weak aura for entangling, but if you're not using it, then that's fine. Explosive Affix now has less health and more consistent spawn behavior. So the explosive rework was by far the worst thing that they did last week. And they came in, they made explosives have 70 zillion health, 500k health or something on a plus 20. They nerfed them by 30% a couple of hours into testing. Still just horrifyingly bad gameplay. So they heard the feedback. They have too much health. It makes sense to try and ignore them. And that was what you did. You just ignored them and let the healers heal through them instead of let the healers DPS them. So they are discussing a redesign to shift responsibility away from healers. The proposed change would cause explosives to instead shield creatures for a percentage of explosives' remaining health when its cast completes. Now, I still think that if you're playing, like, if they succeed and make it worth it for everybody to swap and focus explosives, are DPS players going to have fun if 50% of their globals, 40% of their globals are tabbed and dunking into an explosive? Crucially, an explosive that doesn't get hit by Fist of Fury or I-Beam, an explosive that several AoE abilities don't cleave off of. I think no. I think that week is still not going to be super fun. I think the Affix at a core has a problem there. But this does seem, I guess, better than before. And depending on how they tune it, maybe they can make it so that, like, if you're getting overwhelmed by them, you can just let them go off and break through the shields instead, or if you have, like, AoE heavy classes. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still... Ooh, the explosive change is one that leaves me perplexed still. And then finally, here's a really cool thing they're doing. They are discussing a change to the progression of affixes, because of course we're not getting a seasonal affix, so there's not going to be any affix added at level 10 under the old structure. And now they are going to instead move the level 4 affixes to level 7, and the level 7 affixes to level 14, which I think is pretty sweet. First of all, for the upgrade track, now this means you can farm like the heroic upgrade currency with just one affix besides fortified or tyrannical on your key if you're spamming those 11 keys. And I think that's cool. And I think this also does a better job of making it so that, you know, if you're doing low keys, you're going to have 1 or 2 affixes on your key. If you're doing medium keys, you're going to have 2 or 3 affixes on your key. And if you're doing the higher keys, you're going to have 3 affixes on your key. And if you think back to previous seasons, it was like, you got the affixes, you got the full set of affixes pretty early into the M plus progression. So I think this is going to be a little bit better. I think also this, yeah, I mean, this just seems good to me. This seems cool. I'm not sure that I don't know what the best levels for these affixes to apply starting at are these. Maybe it would make sense to do it at, I guess 11 would be too high because then people doing low keys would just never see the affixes. Maybe something like 6 and 16 even. I guess that would maybe make a really long area where you don't have these last affixes. But yeah, I mean, I guess this seems like a pretty cool change to it. So I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think. Obviously, like I play the game in such a way where whether or not this change came in, almost all of my keys would just have all the affixes on them anyways. In fact, I suspect all my keys next season will be done above level 14, and so will not. I guess maybe I'll farm some 11s for heroic crests on the first week if there's some reason to do that. That's possibly something that will be worth my time. But other than that, I expect to mostly have this be one of the changes that doesn't impact me. So, you know, just because I think it's cool, it's like, okay, are the people actually playing these keys going to have a better time as a result? And my instinct says yes, but if you're one of those players and you're not excited about this change, let me know in the comments. Let them know in the forums, and I'm sure that it's still negotiable. All right, then let's go and talk about some of the other stuff coming in this patch. Now, there's some changes in here that I know more about, and some that I know less about. Some, I've been keeping up with as many of the specs as I can. A lot of specs in this game. I play a lot of them, but I don't play all of them. And I certainly haven't been following the theory craft on like which set bonuses are way ahead and way behind. I mean, I know some stuff, right? But I don't know everything. So we'll go through and read all of these, and I'll give takes where I have them. But a lot of these things I'm not going to have a take for. So it's just if you enjoy your patch notes in audio form. So first of all, okay, we got some new skin tones and hair colors for Dark Iron Dwarfs. Cool. Dark Iron Dwarf. Pretty good race, although I think it's worse than regular Dwarf for most cases. But they've also added blind eyes to all races. Very cool. I think that's a sweet extra piece of customization, and they look really neat. Okay, Frost DK, they're nerfing the 2 set for Frost DK to 10 from 15%. Havoc DH, they are nerfing the 4 set from 8 to 5%. Guardian, they've added some new animation stuff, and they've also done a bug fix / compensation nerf to Resto Druid on their wild growth. Still seems, I suspect Resto Druid's still going to be fine, still looking pretty strong. Devastation Evoker. Now, this is something, if you've been watching my videos, I've been complaining about Devastation Evoker's 10.1 version for quite a while. And they've got a pretty big set of changes here. Thanks to the invaluable feedback, we've made further changes. The bottom section of the tree has been significantly rearranged and has fewer 2-point nodes. Causality has been iterated on, maintaining the goal of rewarding fully channeled disintegrates, but addressing concerns with how the new design would have interacted with haste. If you're wondering how the new design would have interacted with haste, it would have been negative scaling. You would have gotten less damage per, like, people would hit Bloodlust and you would click it off. That would be like, no, stop that, stop giving me haste. So this is nice. And then finally, some underused talents have gotten partial or full reworks to introduce new build and playstyle options. So Causality now gives you Disintegrate, reducing cooldown each time it ticks, and Pyre, reducing cooldowns per enemy struck. So Disintegrate being reduced by each time it ticks. So the way the spec used to work in the previous patch was you'd press your Dragon Rage, your Empower spells would extend your Dragon Rage, and when you cast Disintegrate, you would reduce the cooldown of your Empower spells. So the goal was to just spam your Disintegrate, keep clipping its cast, and get more casts of it in. Then they put this change in 10.1 that said, okay, Disintegrate now, it's just for every second that you're channeling it, your cooldowns are going to cool down faster. But that created the problem of like, oh no, if I get haste, my Disintegrate cast time gets shorter, so I'm going to get less cooldown reduction. Now they've landed on a really good middle ground that says, okay, every time it ticks, it's going to give you the cooldown reduction. So it's fine. It doesn't make your haste less good. but it does it, and it also doesn't cause you to want to clip your disintegrates. So that seems good. That being said, they've still reduced how much cooldown reduction you're getting per empower spell onto your Dragon Rage. So the whole playstyle of like chasing a 4th and 5th extend seems pretty dead still. But this should at least remove some really, really unfun play patterns that would arise. Font of Magic now makes your empower spells reach maximum level in 20% less time. They've changed some stuff like Causality and Everburning Flame, no longer choice nodes. Feed the Flames. After casting 12 pyres, your next pyre explodes into a firestorm, not from volatility bounces though. This one's cool. Imminent Destruction's been redesigned. Deep Breath reduces the essence cost of Disintegrate and Pyre by 1 for 10 seconds after you land. So maybe this will create something cool where you go Deep Breath, and then you just can spam out a bunch of pyres in the next few seconds in AoE, something like that. Then they've also done a bunch of stuff here where they've made stuff 1 rank talents instead of 2 ranks, and these 3 got changed to all give you their full 2 rank value at 1 rank, whereas Lay Waste actually got buffed. It's now a 1 rank talent that is, well, actually, I don't know if this is maybe just a better 1 rank. I don't know what it used to be, though. I don't know if it used to be 30 or 15 for 2 points. Event Horizon, new talent. Eternity Surge's cooldown is reduced by 3 seconds against Eye of Infinity, which says Eternity Surge deals increased damage to your primary target. I have no idea which of those is going to be better. Maybe the cooldown reduction means you can get another extend of your Dragon Rage, but I don't know if that's still going to be something that's possible. And obviously that'll be better in AoE. And then Arcane Vigor, letting your Shattering Star grant Essence Burst, Snapfire buff, and Raging Inferno getting nerfed here. This is the Firestorm stuff. So, okay, I hadn't seen people really. Actually, I've seen this in 1 key. I haven't seen anybody else using it ever, but I haven't done PTR keys with an Evoker. Hunter, they are Revive Pet buff, 2.5 second cast time. Revive Pet is also now physical and can no longer be stopped by silence and interrupt effects. I assume these changes are mostly aimed at PvP, but a side effect is that it'll be a little bit nicer to be a BM Hunter, in keys or whatever, where your pet gets killed. Serve Hunter, they are killing the Vault set bonuses. Well, they're at least killing the 4 set so that it's not going to be something you're going to want to hold on to deep into next tier. I applaud changes like this. They made a similar change to Balance Moonkin. Anytime a previous set's 4-piece is something you will wear into next tier, I think that is something, like, it should be good until you get your new set bonus, but it shouldn't be good beyond that point. And there was some worries that was going to happen here for Serve, especially in single target. So they have prevented that from happening. And compensation buff, which also is nice, so that it's not just bad news to be a Serve Hunter today. Monk, they've fixed a bug for Ferocity of Zhuan, not increasing your summon pet damage. Didn't know that bug existed. It's rare. You basically never hear about Monk being a bugged class, so strange to see one of those, but there it is. Brewmaster, Fluidity of Motions tooltip has been updated to clarify that the damage blackout kick is reduced. Okay, so no actual change there. Paladin, tooltip errors, text errors, errors on triggering from spells, etc., but no functional numbers changes besides, I guess, obviously these are functional changes, but they're, bug fixes. Okay, Disc Priest. New set bonuses for Disc Priest here. The first one is just a buff to Pain or Purge the Wicked and Radiance. And the second one says, Atonement supplied by Radiance lasts 3 seconds longer. Pretty cool. And your spells have a chance to cause your next Radiance to be instant, cost 100% less mana, and can accumulate up to 2 charges. This seems pretty good. Seems pretty good for the mana of the spec, but also just for making your ramps better, right? Atonement's lasting longer, and also, I guess the cast time is not a big deal, but it means it'll make your spec play a little bit better because you can move and still set up some of your ramp there. So this seems like a pretty cool set bonus, but I'm not a Disc Priest, so I have no idea if this is something they love or hate. Holy, not surprised that these set bonuses are changing. Holy set bonuses were broken beyond belief during PTR testing, so they have gone back to the drawing board a little bit here. It's still a Prayer of Mending focused set. The 2-piece now says, when you cast Prayer of Mending, there's a 35% chance its effect is duplicated to another ally. So it's when you cast Prayer of Mending. I think it used to be like every time it bounced. And now the 4 set says whenever it bounces or expires, it increases the damage and healing of your next Holy Word by 4%, stacking up to 15 times. So this set bonus still seems reasonably good. It'll be nice. you're going to get 35% more prayer of mendings over the course of the fight. That's cool. But you're not going to have just infinity of them jumping around all over the place. So that seems fair. Shadow, 10% on death. Nerf to Idol of Cthulhu. Distorted reality is now getting buffed. Okay. Buffing the damage, more damage on Devouring Plague, less extra cost. And Auspicious Spirits, nerf. Nerf by quite a bit here, actually, down to 1 insanity from 2. Shaman, deeply rooted elements should now activate more consistently for all specs. Okay. Sounds like they've made it so that it should not have it should be more consistent, I guess, and less very high and very low proc rates. I don't really know how that works, so fair enough. Forset for Destro has been redesigned. Demon Fire Bolts increase your fire damage by 1%, stacking up to 8 times. Gaining a stack does not refresh the duration, and casting Channel Demon Fire resets this effect. Does that mean like sends it down to 0, or does that mean like does that mean gets rid of the effect, or does that mean like refresh the duration on it? I don't know. Either way, still a Channel Demon Fire set bonus, which I know some Destro locks are not too thrilled about, but we'll see if they end up making it good. Arms Warrior, Fatal Mark now lasts 3 minutes from 2. In addition to its current effect, Bloodletting now causes Mortal Strike to inflict rend on targets below 35% health, if you have rend talented. And Forset has been redesigned. Deep Wounds crits have a chance to increase the damage of your next Mortal Strike by 10% and cause it to shockwave to enemies in front of you, stacking 3 times. Damage reduced above 5 targets. Seems pretty good. Although again, not an Arms Warrior. Fury 4-piece has been adjusted. Rampage now causes your next Bloodthirst to have a 10% increased crit chance, deal 25% increased damage, and generate 2 additional Rage, stacking up to 10 times. I don't know how this compares to the old one at all, so if you're a Fury Warrior, maybe you do. Items and rewards. Elemental Potions of Ultimate Power are no longer bind on pickup. Interesting. So I guess maybe you can buy these on the auction house now. Are they still going to be the best potions? I think they are, right? So that's nice. I guess the experiment with whole needing to work order your BIS potions was kind of cool, but don't mind them not having that. Potion of Chilled Clarity can no longer be canceled and is now on the global. This is the Sleepy Pot, right? And then there's also I've heard that the Frozen Focus potion, it's not noted here, but I've heard that it now correctly does some stuff that it didn't used to do that makes it worse for healers now. Apparently it's finally gonna... Wait. Okay, no, that's Chilled Clarity. Yeah, okay, now on the global cooldown. Okay. I don't know about Frozen Focus then. I don't know if that's changed. I could be fake newsing. It is this one. This is the change that they were talking about, not Frozen Focus. Anyways, Profession Raid Recipes... Profession Recipe raid drops have moved to Aberrus on all difficulties. This seems really cool. I think that something that happens in previous expansions sometimes is that important recipes or whatever stay in the old raid that nobody's running anymore, and then they just kind of stop dropping. I think they should also make sure they move like the Lariat drop to the Feroc Assaults, not just the old... Like, I guess, are old Primal Storms even still going to exist? Maybe they won't, so... But yeah, just making sure that they're... Anything that is still good in a new patch or still BIS in a new patch should be coming from the new patch content as well. Rather than like, okay, you just can't get it if you didn't get it last patch type stuff. Okay, PvP changes. Whatever. Not a PvPer. What's the Rep Paladin stuff? No Rep Paladin stuff in there. I guess those are probably happening on live hotfixes still. I've heard a lot of complaining about that. They have nerfed it a few times. Okay, new optional reagents are... available for upgrading items to a higher eye level. Spark Gear purple. And okay, yeah, so this is interesting. Yeah, so Concentrated Primal Infusions now go up to 421 to match upgrade systems. So existing 418 gear, when you copy a character to PTR that has 418 gear, it becomes 421 gear. I wonder if that's going to happen when this patch actually goes live. If so, and you have like a main character, you should maybe look through and be like, hey, are there any crafted items that I would wear at 421 that I'm not wearing because they would be 418, and then get those things crafted and ready in case that happens? I don't know, though, if this is going to be a retroactive change. Even if it isn't, you should be able to recraft and get to 421, even if they make it not retroactive on existing items. So, yeah. Some other nice profession, quality of life stuff. Momentum redistributor boots can no longer be used in dungeons and raids. Darn it! There goes our tech. This was Razageth tech you would use to reduce fall damage and deal damage to the ads you landed on the intermission platforms. Yeah. They've redesigned slash loot as well, which that's nice. Slash loot was something that I've used and found clunky several times already this expansion. Okay. Oh, interesting. Group loot now has a transmog option that replaces greed if you don't have the appearance, and that takes priority over greed rolls. Huh. Players... Okay, it's a known issue that players can transmog roll on items that are not their primary armor type. Yeah, okay, so you're not supposed to be able to do that. And right now, they're treated equally. So what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to be able to roll transmog and get prio over people just rolling greed. And so if you actually want the item for using it on an off-spec or whatever, you should click need. Little known feature of the current group loot system, if you roll need on an item that is not for your current loot spec, you can still roll need on it, but you have a lower priority roll than people who are rolling need on their main spec, on their loot spec items. So yeah, if you would want an off-spec item, now you should be clicking need on it probably, and then that will be higher like it'll be need main spec over need off-spec over transmog over greed over pass, I guess. Somebody randomly getting it of everybody who passed, which does make sense. Yeah, a little counterintuitive there, and it also does create a little bit of an abuse where, maybe you change your loot spec to try and increase the chances of just getting a good item, even if it's for your off spec or whatever. But yeah, end of the day, I'd still think a pretty reasonable system. Okay, that was our look at the PTR notes. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.